The picture that is starting to emerge is that Charlie's last day consisted of a lot of arguments, okay? Because they have not been honest in their portrayal about what their relationship was. And I will leave it at that. This like idea of this amazing godly relationship with that is not accurate.
Let's have a serious conversations about Christian marriages. The beautiful lie, what Christian marriages actually look like. This is not talked about enough in Christian circles. And certainly when I was in Christian circles, there's always something hidden behind those Instagram posts of couples with captioned Bible verses, behind sermon series on biblical marriages, behind the pristine smiles of, God mashed us together. God gave me my husband. God gave me, it's usually women really. The truth is most Christian marriages are struggling in silence. So I'm going to ask a curious question. Is it truly silence or is it repression? And because of that, they just hide it from us.
You have to be the type of woman that will attract a Charlie.
She has no problem whatsoever continuously referring to their relationship as like the golden standard of God's will for relationships. And it was all based on a lie.
I'm Fatima, and this is Undefined Life, where we will pull back the veil on what we've been taught and ask the questions that make people uncomfortable. You see, liberation doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from truth. And today I will be talking about the beautiful lie we've all been sold about Christian marriage. I'm going to drink some of my tea for that. What inspired this? So recently Candace Owens is doing this Bride of Charlie series, and she alluded to Charlie and Erika Kirk having marital issues.
Put that picture away. That's what they want to know. It refers to a picture of Erika and Charlie on their wedding day, which Charlie had in his home office, that suddenly went missing after his death. I'm starting to get a feeling that there might have been another reason that the daughter woke up, but stick with me. Maybe there's noise, not from excitement, but maybe an argument. Maybe there was an argument. That would make more sense to me, especially when we add in how she concludes that portion by telling us that Charlie took off his wedding ring during that same night, which is why he, of course, then had to put it back on the next morning. And Erika says that he snuck in the next morning to put that wedding band on. I immediately clocked that. Even when that interview was live, I said, that's weird, just because I know Charlie. But I couldn't explain that to the audience. I know Charlie. Charlie's the kind of person who could sleep with his boots on. Like, let's now try to put these clues together, just to recap. Okay, clue number one, Charlie did not sleep in his own bed despite returning from a long trip to Asia. Number two, Charlie's wedding ring was taken off. Number three, Charlie removed, I think I'm saying this, I'll say allegedly, I think it was Charlie who removed his wedding photo from his home set. I think that's where he went into his office for a bit. Number four, a priest came over to pray the night before. Again, when I take out my handy dandy notebook and I put a picture together using basic logic, the picture that is starting to emerge is that Charlie's last day consisted of a lot of arguments. Okay. Arguments over his shifting away from the pro-Israel position, him communicating to people that he was over it, that he did not want the money, him communicating to people that he wanted to bring me back to AmFest. He was very clear in telling people that on the 9th, the day before he died. And when I look at the fact that Charlie or Erika's able to account for what happened the night before, and she's kind of cagey and answering, and she's giving us more about how Gigi sleeps and moves in bed than she is about what Charlie was doing, other than getting a snack, I feel, and I could be wrong, that there was a knock 'em dead argument that happened. That's what makes logical sense to me. About what I don't know, that's what makes sense. Because they have not been honest in their portrayal about what the relationship was. And I will leave it at that. This like idea of this amazing godly relationship with that is not accurate. And it would not have been relevant if Erika had kept it honest throughout this entire process. But she's not. She's getting caught in a lot of lies. And when I go back and I revisit the way she tells the lies, I feel very strange about it. Now that we know this is a lie, it's crazy to watch how performative she is in trying to deliver the lie so that it's believable to the masses. I don't think it was a peaceful night's sleep the night before. A priest that came over to pray over Charlie and Erika's marriage the night before is what I am told.
And honestly, I'm not surprised. Actually, I'm relieved this is coming to light. And let me tell you why. I don't feel shocked. I feel unsurprised. I'm someone who was in the Christian space. So I'm just not surprised, because what we are often witnessing isn't the breakdown of a perfect marriage. It's the collapse of a performance. And if you think about it, for Candace to accuse someone's bride of that, how good was that marriage? So I want to talk about that performance, the veneer, and what is done to women in Christian marriages. And by this, I mean no way in Candace's camp or Erika Kirk's camp. And I'm not doing this to attack Christian marriages or attack faith. I want to tell the truth, and let me add this caveat. Some women and some marriages, before I get attacked by the holier than thou righteous Christian police, telling me, don't attack Christian marriages, because God's design is the family. And you have a Jesus where Jesus came and didn't even get a wife. And you've got priests telling you about God's design and they don't have wives. So a big red flag for me is this. So I'm just going to put up some videos of Erika Kirk.
One of Charlie's favorite Bible verses was Ephesians 5, verse 25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. My husband laid down his life for me, for our nation, for our children. He showed the ultimate and true covenantal love. It was the greatest joy of his life. And over, he would tell all these young people to come in and find their future spouse, become wives and husbands and parents. And the reason why is because he wanted you all to experience what he had and still has. He wanted everyone to bring heaven into this earth through love and joy that comes from raising a family. It's beautiful. Charlie loved his children, and he loved me with all of his heart. And I knew that. Every day I knew that. He made sure I knew that every day. Every day he would ask me, how can I serve you better? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better father? Every day. Every day. He's such a good man. He still is a good man. He was the perfect father. He was the perfect husband. Charlie always believed that God's design for marriage and the family was absolutely amazing, and it is. And someone once asked me how Charlie and I, how we kept our marriage so strong when he was busy traveling. And our little secret, it was love notes. Every Saturday, Charlie wrote one for me, and he never missed a Saturday. And always at the end, he would always end it with asking the most beautiful question. He'd always end it by asking, please let me know how I can better serve you as a husband. Charlie perfectly understood God's role for a Christian husband, a man who leads so that they can serve. To all the men watching around the world, accept Charlie's challenge and embrace true manhood. Be strong and courageous for your families. Love your wives and lead them. Love your children and protect them. Be the spiritual head of your home. But please be a leader worth following. Your wife is not your servant. Your wife is not your employee. Your wife is not your slave. She is your helper. You are not rivals. You are one flesh working together for the glory of God. I was Charlie's confidant. I was his bolt, his closest and most trusted advisor, his best friend. I poured into him and loved him so deeply, empowered him, because his love for me drove me to be a better wife. Every day he honored me, and I prayed that I could be the wife that God needed me to be for my husband. Women, I have a challenge for you too. Be virtuous. Our strength is found in God's design for our role. We are the guardians. We are the encouragers. We are the preservers. No keeping score between us. We were a team, working together for the same mission. My marriage with Charlie was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I know it was the best thing that ever happened to him as well. He wanted everyone to experience that joy. And that's what's so beautiful about God's design for marriage, is that everyone can.
You know what I notice about Erika Kirk in her interviews? She would always emphasize how Charlie asked to serve her every day, how he treated her as his wife, how she was a good wife, how he loved Ephesians 5 verse 25. And I remember thinking, why does she keep saying that? Why the constant need to almost justify or need to prove it? Was he worshipping her or something? You see, I'm saying this because in evangelical circles, especially complementarian ones, there's an obsession with Ephesians 5, which talks about wives submit to your husbands. Charlie Kirk will he'd always talk about go and submit to your husband. Now Taylor Swift should submit to her husband. Women should be submitted to their husbands. It's such an incongruence when you think about the fact that she's talking about, oh, Charlie's verse was husbands, love your wives in the sacrificial way that Christ loves the church. And if you've been in evangelical spaces, I just find that odd. That's not what they talk about the most. Because Charlie's making out that they've got this godly evangelical marriage.
It's hard to put into words how much men want just like a return to normal things, like cooking a meal, like serving in like those fundamental ways. Like that stuff as a husband or even a boyfriend goes beyond measure that I can put into words.
That goes to say, just make things fun. Don't look at it as I have to. I get to serve my husband. I get to submit unto my husband because he's submitting himself to the Lord. There is a balance, and there's something really beautiful about that balance.
Well, that's like, how do you do it when Charlie's traveling and like all of it? It's because we understand our biblical roles in our marriage. He is the head of the household, and I am not a servant. I am not a slave to the master. I am his helpmate. I am the guardian of the home. That is my domain.
Oh, I don't know. So Ephesians 5, which talks about wives submit to your husbands, is the go-to verse. It's the gold standard. And it's also the revelation women claim God gave them personally too, before marrying. And I always say to myself, God is so original, isn't he? He's just going to tell you, submit to your husband. That's what the Lord told me. But yet you've been reading that Bible and he has to tell you what you know or reinforce that scripture. So when someone, like in the Erika Kirk example, keeps overemphasizing the opposite, that their husband serves them, that they're not controlled, it tells you something. Is this an insinuation that there's a crack in the foundation? Why convince us when we didn't think any different? When we thought you've got a bog standard Christian marriage, why keep trying to convince us of what is unusual? And here's what I want you to understand. This isn't just about Charlie Kirk and Erika Kirk. This is the tip of the iceberg. Christian marriages have this veneer of perfection, this glossy finish that says, we prayed together, we married as virgins, we follow God's design, so we are blessed. As Erika said, Charlie wanted people to have a perfect marriage. Christian marriages are sold to us as spiritually superior and perfect, heaven on earth. And as we see, as I was preparing for this, that's what Erika Kirk said. She said Charlie wanted people to experience heaven on earth. You hear things like, if you marry another Christian, God will bless it. That's what I heard. If you stay pure, your marriage will be protected from infidelity. Sure. Just look at the recent scandal with Philip Yancey, I think. He's an author. I've known him, but I've never read his books. He had a scandal for 8 years there. But I doubt if Philip Yancey and if his wife wasn't pure when he married her. And I think there's another one as well who's been involved in an infidelity scandal. We've got loads in the Black community, of course. Oh, there's this one as well. If you submit, your home will flourish. What does it mean to say flourish? They should elaborate on that by what they mean. If you pray hard enough, your husband will change. But come on, hello, I thought I chose him because of what I followed from God. So why am I having to pray hard enough? I thought he was perfect. There's this subtle and sometimes not so subtle promise. If you follow the formula, your marriage will be safe from marital issues and strife. But from what I've known and from what I continue to see, underneath, so many Christian marriages are drowning. And I'm not saying non-Christian marriages are perfect. All marriages have challenges. We all know that. But Christianity has created this false promise. This idea that if you just check all the boxes and marry another Christian, if you stay pure, you submit properly, you pray enough, God will make it perfect. It's almost like they're selling us a Christian fairy tale story. And they lived happily ever after. Do, 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 do. Well, I'm here to be the voice of truth and reason. I'm debunking it. It's pure Christian propaganda. It's a sales pitch for an institution that matters more to the church than the people in it. Do you know how much money Christian marriage ministries make? Do you know how many people who run Christian marriage retreats make? Once you know that, you will understand. It's the same thing in the world, but this one is like niche. I do Christian marriages. And then I ask, is that really all about Jesus Christ? Or it becomes kind of like a business. We sell our merch together. If you think about it, purity rings. The list goes on. Anyway, that's me going on a rant. Let's get back to the topic, shall we? So they tell you marriage is the closest thing to Christ's relationship with the church because it's like the covenant with Christ and his bride, the church. If that's the case, why didn't Jesus himself get married? But also, why is he dying for the whole world? Is he not in covenant with the whole world as well? And why was Jesus so egalitarian? Which means he saw women as equals and so compassionate towards women, never once telling them to submit. The model they're selling to me is based on patriarchal norms, not on Christ's actual example. And they're selling it really because it's a moneymaker. But we need to address the elephant in the room. The truth is marriages in general are hard, Christian or not. The must-dos don't make superior marriages. In fact, I'm willing to bet that they add unnecessary expectations that lead to higher rates of disappointment. If people keep selling you a perfect bill of goods and they turn out not to be perfect, to have cracks and to have issues, truly the first reaction, if you're human, is, What is this? Confusion, not understanding, and probably disappointment. Especially if you're a true human being who's not indoctrinated that this is God's redemption of me. I need to suffer in marriage so that I'll make it to heaven, so that I'm God's servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. Let me paint you a picture of what Christian marriage often looks like for women. You are told your husband is the head. Fine. But then you're also told it's your duty to manage the home. There's that scripture, I think that's weighted on women so much. A woman who ruins her home. But hang on a minute. Wait, if he's the leader, the head, shouldn't he be responsible for managing the home too? And when I'm talking about this, please don't be petty and think about things like the roles that men and women naturally are good at in the home. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about absolving all responsibility from the husband and then now saying to the woman, you take reins. How does she take reins when she's meant to submit everything that she's supposed to do? She has to come back to him. How is she managing that home? No, you're just asking her. Now we go back to the roles. Be that wife that slaves off for your husband while he tells you what to do. That way, then you're managing your home properly. That's what I see. And that's what I believe. Especially complementarian marriages, which is what most evangelicals are fighting for. And they say that's Christian marriage. You can attack me in the comments if you think I'm wrong. If he's supposed to lead you, shouldn't he be looking after you in the same way Christ looks after the church? Sacrificing for you, submitting to meet the needs of the church. Do we see that? Because that's what Philippians 2 says. But no, instead, there's this endless ego stroking expected. Don't upset him. Don't stress him. Don't be a stumbling block. Don't nag. Guard your tone. Keep the peace. Respect him. Make him feel important. Be a cook in the kitchen. His prayer warrior. And a freak in the bedroom. And before I forget, submit. Obey. But people are still doing that and not happy. Christian marriage culture often layers a theology of perfection over normal human struggle. So instead of honest conflict, you perform meek and quiet submission while you are festering unspoken resentments. Instead of accountability, you get spiritual language and blame for letting the devil in.
I don't know where you are, devil, but I know you can hear me. No more. You are done. Jesus is the Lord of this house. And that means there's no place for you here anymore. And get out! In Jesus' name. You can't have my marriage, and you sure can't have my man. This house is under new management, and that means you are out.
You gave the devil a foothold. The devil is only exposing the true devil that's happening in your home. That's my thoughts. Instead of repair processes, you get scripture quoted to you and pray about it. And women are taught to interpret suffering as God-ordained spiritual maturity. No wonder they're drowning. And if you think I'm exaggerating, go listen to Christian podcasts like the women on Leslie Furnick's Conquer platform and podcast, Natalie Hoffman's Flying Free, Ruth Oludaware, and Patrick Weaver Ministries. Women conditioned by movies like War Room to be the perfect wife regardless, airing their concerns, their problems, their troubles. Just go to those podcasts and listen. Big, large ministries helping loads of women. Helped me. Because I was one of those deluded ones. With the whole thing about Christian marriage preparation, let's talk about purity culture, which has made women and girls responsible for men's lust. Can you imagine a teenage girl going through puberty, developing breasts, something that she doesn't even understand, like, okay, my body is still developing. She wears shorts and she's called a stumbling block. And then she's the problem? Her biology and her body changing is the problem? Jesus talked about lust as the man's responsibility, but Christianity flipped it, made modesty the woman's burden. And look, I'm not one who says go about not dressed or whatever. That's not me. But I'm just saying they made men's sexual sin women's fault. And when you look at countries where women cover up, they still get violated by men. All it taught us was that male weakness was our responsibility. If a man struggled sexually, you weren't modest enough. Can I ask, why don't they have the same passion when they talk about pro-life and really attack the men who fertilize the seed that makes the woman become pregnant? Again, if you think about it, if a man cheated, oh, well, you didn't submit enough. responsibility was quietly shifted from the original message of Jesus, or was it deliberate? And I'm just going to say it isn't Christ-like. Let's see that passion for people who violate young girls with the risk that they can get pregnant, which is biology again, but they're in trouble when they say they don't want to keep that baby. And when you look at how Jesus treated women in the Gospels, he did not burden them with responsibility for male behavior. I think there's a verse that he said, you lord over people things that you can't do. That was to the religious establishment. And this is what has been happening in Christian marriages. This is why so many women are burdened. That's my opinion. That's what I think. It's my channel. And that's why I deconstructed Christianity for a reason. Instead, what do we have? Well, instead of what Jesus was trying to do, where he was restoring the dignity of women who had no value, by the way, in his time, making them human, humanizing them. You know, if the stories of Jesus are true, the one of the woman with the issue of blood, he called her daughter. She would have been an outcast. He protected women, like the woman who was going to be stoned after adultery. So how did we get from that to a system that teaches girls their bodies are threats? Because if they were violating them back then, you can't tell me it's all to do with modesty. You can't. I refuse to accept that. Because we know that there's cultures that still sort of mirror the times that Jesus lived. These people cover themselves up from head to toe, but they get violated. Now, there's something that I noticed, and this ties into what we're talking about. There are countless conferences, books, sermons, retreats, and messages on wives submit to husbands. But sermons on husbands loving their wives the sacrificial Christ way, as Erika Kirk says Charlie said to her. Men don't show up to those, or they accuse the leaders of pandering to women, or then claiming you're emasculating us. I'm not surprised though, because when all you have is teaching aimed at women being men-centered instead of God-centered, instead of Christ-centered, that's when you know something is broken. Because truly, it should be more about the faith and less about the man. And as I began my deconstruction and began to deconstruct patriarchy, I would ask questions such as, where are the conferences teaching men how to not dominate? And that sort of started like the ball rolling for me. I stopped attending women's conferences. I was asking, where are the weekly sermons warning men against weaponizing authority, dominating their women? Actually, there is one, Christian one, which I did attend when I was in Christianity. But even in that conference, men struggled to answer those questions. Because you could tell that they were gatekeeping, because there is something to do with male headship and power that they believe that they have to keep. Even when they're seeing that Jesus is giving them a different example, somehow they cannot relate to us because they think, my goodness me, my authority will be usurped by the woman. So we can't be seen saying this. Your evangelical spaces, right? That imbalance matters. Now, I want to look at a little bit of research into some of the themes that I'm highlighting, that I'm bringing up when I'm talking about this topic, because we need to back up what we're talking about, right? Baby. So here's what's fascinating. There's a Christian author called Sheila Gregoire, and she did extensive research and she studied thousands of Christian marriages for her books like The Great Sex Rescue. And you know what she found? She found that the couples who say that they're the complementarian marriages, where they believe in the husband being the head of the home and the wife submitting, and that kind of type of marriage where they talked about submission and headship, but when you examined what they actually did in their homes, they functioned in egalitarian ways. And the survey of those marriages, they were actually the happy married Christian couples. But marriages where they were truly complementarian, where the wife's submission was enforced and hierarchy is enforced, where the husband's authority was emphasized, the wives were miserable and the wives didn't even enjoy sex. Can you imagine if you have to say yes to your husband all the time? You're not going to tell the truth. These couples were deeply unhappy with higher dissatisfaction. I'm just going to show up like what her books look like. And she's got a ministry. You can follow her. And this actually matches broader relationship research. So if we're coming out of like the Christian sphere, if we look at like data cited by institutions like the Gottman Institute, which consistently shows that stable, healthy relationships aren't conflict-free. However, they're responsive to each other, they show emotional intelligence and mutual respect. R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T. That's what makes them healthy. Not, oh, we want heaven on earth. So it shows that even the ones that are working in the wider society are egalitarian. And that tells us something. Tells us that, well, to me anyway, that theology alone is not what makes Christian marriages thrive, but equity, understanding, mutuality, and emotional maturity. You need all that. I'm going to talk about a little bit more of what I know in my experience is important. So hierarchy alone doesn't create marital relationship safety, as evangelical Christianity puts it. Because if you think about it, Erika Kirk should have been safe. The way Candace Owens is going at it, why is she accusing her of things with her husband if she was safe? So when I look at Charlie Kirk and when I look at Erika, who doesn't strike me as someone who embraced submission willingly, of course there were problems. So we are in a season of exposure. Anything false is coming to light. Systems and structures built on performance, on lies, on image management, we see them, they're crumbling around us. We see celebrities are failing, political figures are being exposed, and yes, church folk are included in this too. Some call this the age of Aquarius. Someone like me who's deconstructing has been able to sort of look at what's going on and hear what other people are saying. And they talk about this age of Aquarius, which brings everything to light. So what does this mean to you and I? You cannot perform your way into authenticity. You cannot pray your marriage into health while living a lie publicly. Truth will come out and reveal the lie. You've got to become authentic. It works or it doesn't work. Prayer alone doesn't save marriages. Fasting alone doesn't transform your spouse. And I'm going to tell you what transforms a person is the person choosing and desiring transformation. And by choosing, I mean acting on their will, on their own volition to take actions that rescue and repair a marriage. Otherwise, it's not happening. And the uncomfortable truth is that marrying a Christian doesn't guarantee a good marriage, especially if you marry someone who will weaponize scripture against you, who will use your tone, your questions, your humanity against you and say that you're not submitted enough. Because you're just going to feel bad. You see, the various Christian ministries I mentioned are already proof, and I rest my case. So we're going to get a little bit personal here. I've been in a Christian marriage myself, and I can tell you it was the worst relationship I ever had. If you want to talk about the biggest confusion I ever had in my life, it's that. And when I compare it to relationships I had with non-Christian partners or people who were Christian but not seriously evangelical and insisting on exactly what I mentioned above, picture it, you know what I'm talking about. My non-Christian partners, or the ones who were just Christian but quite not obsessed with it, they took accountability for their mistakes. I did not know this until afterwards, of course. I had to go through this process of compare and contrast. And the Christian marriage, I will say, was painfully, suffocatingly heavy, wearisome, tiring, annoying, frustrating. I don't know whatever adjective you can put there. Oh, that was the time when I went, there's just no peace in this world. And I think it's because in Christian marriage, there's this weaponization of scriptures such as submit, obey, which can become like spiritual manipulation. There's a lot of tone policing, don't nag the husband who goes on top of the rooftop. So it becomes a form of a weapon to guilt trip you into silence. Your very existence as a woman with opinions, with needs, with a voice, it becomes the problem from the actual problems. You, the woman, are the problem. Instead of facing the actual problems that you're having, which could be infidelity, a husband who watches porn, or he's just emotionally distant. It could be violence. It could be emotional abuse, emotional neglect, financial abuse. There's one which I think is very, very common. It could be that he's just nonchalant. He just doesn't care. And it could be just apathy, indifference. The one that I think happens a lot, I think a lot of Christian husbands, when I get told about them, I feel like they're quite ambivalent, and the wives have to sort of stay with that marriage and they just don't know what to say, what to do. But just look up what ambivalence does and you will know how destructive it is in a marriage. And the woman is saying, I'm submitted, that's my husband, he's the head. Oh my goodness, talk about a silent weapon. or a silent, what's the word I'm looking for? A silent atomic bomb in the middle of your house. A silent weapon in your house. A silent war. That's the word I'm looking for. A silent war going on in your house. Yeah, so I'm almost closing, but if you've been watching this far, thank you so much. I invite you to comment. I would love to hear any experiences that you've had. And as I say this, I know there's some good marriages out there, and I talked about it. They tend to function as more egalitarian. So since deconstructing from Christianity, I found that Christianity is so much ego stroking. And let's go to the ego for a bit. I used to call the ego edging God out. But when I started questioning my faith, I now prefer the term evolving gone off or expansion gone out. I suppose it is still edging God out, because you only grow and evolve when you're fully, expressed in God. So back to the ego. Your ego is a protective mechanism you developed as a child to survive. All of us have egoic aspects to who we are. But as we get older, if you stay there where you need people to stroke your ego through constant validation, where they need to make you feel important through the pursuit of dominance and reverence, if we are doing that, we can't grow into this conscious emotional maturity where we become aware of the other and the dynamics of relationship and relating with another. Staying in this place of ego will keep you emotionally stunted. And I would argue spiritually dangerous. Why? Because now your dominance from your ego makes you feel righteous. Your control will feel ordained. And you'll silence others because you feel justified and because it feels biblical. And do you know what that is? Entitlement. It's creating entitled individuals. You become entitled. And your growth only happens when you stop needing external validations. And when you notice when people are becoming emotionally mature and aware of other people, they're not entitled, they know how to sit in their own accountability, take responsibility, recognize where they've done harm, and they're willing to come to a place where you can repair. And I'll say that that's a place of growth. How do they get there? If you notice there's certain attributes, certain things that they have, and that's what I want to talk about. And I think that's what will help you in your Christian marriages. Growth happens when you stop needing external validation. When you stop needing to be perceived as better, as more righteous, as more spiritually or hierarchically important. When you live in your wholeness as a person who is aware of themselves and how they show up to others. If you're a Christian, you master the Philippians 2 example of Christ's humility with others. And by this, I don't mean be a pushover, but don't feel entitled. Something shifts, And I say this because that's the problem with so much of Christian marriage culture. The constant ego stroking of men within patriarchy. And I'm going to be honest with you, I can't stand it. And that's another reason why I knew I'm struggling to stay in this faith. Because when I see these things, they annoy me. They piss me off. And because I'm that person who just wants to see women who are being ill-treated receive some kind of justice. Because I think that's what God did. He fought for the oppressed. And I'm thinking, but why are we doing ego stroking when this person is clearly in the wrong and they don't want to take responsibility for what they have done? They don't want to be accountable. Instead, they're shifting the blame to the weaker person, the one who's easy to attack. And I'm not saying there are women who are perfect. That's not who I represent. That's not who I talk for. That's not who I'm talking about. That's not who this video is for. I am talking about people who really have tried to be the submitted, good wife, but yet they still faced a lot of marital strife, problems, you name it. That's who I'm talking about. So don't go in my comments and talk about those women. That's not who I'm talking about. That's not who this video is for. This is why I said I'm not on Erika Kirk's or Candace Owens' side. I'm not taking sides because for both of them, I don't see them as people who have been the women I'm talking about. I've got a video I'm going to be doing in the future about them specifically. That got me going. So what do I actually believe? I am pro-marriage and I believe stable partnership is beautiful, it's powerful. But I'm anti-performance-based marriage, where people live opposite from what they preach or teach, or they teach principles that are not the true reality of what people are experiencing. That's like a doctor giving you paracetamol. I think in America you call it acetaminophen for heart problems, That's not the solution. No, we need to start dealing with what we are seeing truthfully and not to preserve and protect one gender. I want you to marry someone based on the values that you have. So, for example, marry someone who genuinely likes you and who wants you to be happy, because you deserve to be liked. If God loves you, why shouldn't you be liked? Why shouldn't you marry someone who makes you happy? I think that's important. Marry someone who doesn't need you to be small so that they feel big. That's just an insecure prick. And certainly, I would say, don't be in a marriage with forced or overemphasized hierarchy, or an inauthentic marriage that is sustained by fear of divorce, ignoring the harm that is happening in it. I don't think that's healthy. And of course, if you're conservative and faith matters to you, marry someone aligned with you. But understand this, being Christian does not guarantee a healthy marriage. It's like saying being Christian does not mean you'll not get sick. Or I think another example is like saying being a doctor does not mean you'll never get ill. And I'll say, particularly a selfish, entitled, ego-driven character under the Christian umbrella, if you marry that type of person, they will give you a hard time. Whatever they are, male or female. Why does this topic concern me so much? Well, as a healthcare professional, as a life coach, I found that the women who were raised to people please, to submit at all costs, to marry young because it's safer, and who carry strong religious guilt and they have a lack of self-trust are often the ones who suffer the most in these marriages. And I've seen these women disappearing. So something in my heart was like, goodness me, that's not okay. And if that's you, I'm going to tell you the truth. Until you learn to speak up and say, no, this doesn't mirror Christ and the love of Christ and the person of Christ that I see in the red letters of the Bible, I won't live like this anymore. Otherwise, I'm not going to change.
It already accepted the lie that a nation is nothing more than a collection of individuals. And so the matter was framed this way. Men as individuals can vote, so why cannot individual women do the same? We were so muddled, we thought we were giving the franchise to women when we were in fact taking it away from families.
Okay, here's the thing. This guy thinks that a woman should submit to her husband. And this triggers me ultra hard because when you grow up and you're told you need to be a good wife, you need to be a good mother, your husband will take care of the finances, all of those things. And then you do it. And then you end up married to a total fucking deadbeat. I was that person. Like, world crashed, hadn't worked in years, has to go back to work, no financial support, house repossessed because I did everything I was supposed to do according to that man right there. And I got stuck holding the bag for all of it. And that is why it is so personal to me. This is a man that does not value women. No. And I am a victim of that ideology, and it is dangerous, in my opinion, and in my personal experience.
2017, when I would find out the most shocking thing of my entire life, that my Mormon returned missionary, priesthood holding, temple recommend carrying husband of 22 years, father of my children, had a complete double life. In his own words of some of the things that he was doing. I'm sorry, I cheated on you. I lied and deceived. I've withdrawn love our entire lives. I've hurt you. You suffered at my hand. I've destroyed your innocent nature. I failed as a husband. I don't offer security you needed. I caused more damage to our family. I didn't recognize you as my equal partner. Your needs have gone unmet for years. Most of all, you endure pain and torment with me. I don't feel empathy, which leaves you all alone, insecure and alone.
Stop putting what your pastor says, what some church doctrines tell you above your own peace, your own happiness, your own health, your own well-being. I just say stop doing it. And contact the ministries that I talked about because they will help you. They're people who are equipped to help you. We are living in a time where veneers are falling, institutions, celebrities, systems. We've seen the disruption in all these places. Performance is collapsing. So if you choose to stay in performance, something will happen that will cause it to collapse. I think the earth cannot sustain people who are going about with that vibration anymore of wounding, of pain. And I believe the church world is not exempt from that. Truth is uncomfortable, but truth sets people free. This is a message for you if you're simply trying to build a marriage rooted in authenticity rather than fear. You're not alone in that desire and you're not crazy. My channel is a space for honest dialogue. I'm willing to bring up some topics. And if you want more conversations like this that are thoughtful, that are nuanced, that are unafraid, where we can challenge the narratives, please subscribe. And as an African woman deconstructing, I know the risks, I know the judgment, the she has demons accusations, but I'm past caring what people need to believe about me to sleep at night or to live a life where I think, goodness me, at least I'm happy with my life. I walk my own path. And I invite you to do the same because we are not here for performance. God didn't bring us to earth to just act out who we are not. We're here for the truth. And so, as we come to the end of this video, I want to leave you with something that I think cuts to the very heart of everything we've been discussing. I did something before finishing this video. I went and looked up Charlie Kirk's teachings on marriage, and I'm glad I did, because it brought into sharp relief the very tension I always try to illuminate on this channel. Here is the dichotomy. Here is where the juxtaposition lives. Charlie Kirk's messages to young people about marriage were genuinely beautiful. I want to be honest about that. If I was still a practicing Christian, if I was fully rooted in that world, believing, applying, and sincere, Charlie Kirk would have moved me. There is real sacrificial conviction in what he preached. He held men to account. He called them to step up. And in doing so, he was, whether he named it or not, acknowledging the very crisis in modern relationships that I talk about on this channel. That is credit where credit is due. But here is where I must also be honest with what I see, not through a lens of judgment, but through the clear, unobstructed eye that deconstruction gives you. The problem was never the theology alone. The problem is the performance of perfection. When you sell people a flawless marriage, even while saying it will get hard, you create a culture where people cannot show their struggle, because the moment they do, the whole image collapses. And that is precisely where Candace Owens enters the conversation, not as a theological challenge, but as a human one. Whatever happened in that marriage, if something did, it was something that was beyond submission or scripture. It was about the weight of a public political identity that was shifting. And that is an entirely different conversation altogether. As for Erika Kirk, what I observed was a question of authenticity. It now appears as if Erika Kirk is a woman who's seen to practice something far closer to an egalitarian marriage than the complementarian framework her husband publicly championed, where, because he's the head, he provides and she stays home and looks after the children. As we see now, people are questioning where all that has gone. And perhaps that in itself is its own quiet testimony of Christian marriage, of the beautiful lie, the false promise, as it isn't all heaven on earth. Now, as someone who deconstructed her faith, deconstructed patriarchy, submission, yada yada, the deeper point, the one I want you to carry is this. Deconstruction is not the destination, it is the doorway. Leaving religion can feel like stepping off solid ground into nothing. Who am I now? What do I believe? What do I become? And that disorientation is real and it is valid. But the work, the real work, it's not simply to leave something behind. It is to come into your own awareness, to find the truth that is aligned with who you are truly, not who you were told to be. To reprogram your mind, not with someone else's perfect narrative, but with your own authentic one. That is what this channel is about. Not deconstruction for its own sake, but you stepping fully into yourself. Questioning what's been sold to you, sold to us. Thank you so much for watching. I invite you to leave your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear your story. So, I never thought I would ever say this, but I'll say thank you, Candace, for exposing what needed to be exposed, for letting the veneer crack so people can see the truth underneath. And I just never thought I would say thank you to Candace Owens. If this resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to Undefined Life. And if you're navigating deconstruction or questioning what you were taught, subscribe by hitting that bell notification and take care. Bye. Peace.